the best group that I've had a chance to work with in terms of working together on issues that affect our community and cooperation. And I'm not even wanting anything from these guys. I have to tell you, it's been a pleasure representing you with this group of folks. They owe me about now, Roger, and coffee for the rest of the session. Otherwise, I'm just happy to. I'll answer any questions anybody has.
Good morning, everyone. The session is off to a pretty fast start. Not in the number of bills, actually. I think the number of bills is low compared to previous years. But the rumors of bills are going to be significant in the upcoming week. I know what everyone's going to want to talk about, and we'll get to it. What's that?
Fishing.
Yeah, fishing. But I want to stress a couple different things just to set the preamble here. In the governor's state of the state, obviously, he had his two big issues. One was the tax increase for education, and the second was on Medicaid expansion. Now, as odd as this may be, there is not a proposal for either one of those at the Capitol yet. There is not a bill. There is not a specific proposal. There is a whole lot that needs to be done before we even see anything. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised that after an entire summer study, hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars, that we don't have a bill to look at. We have a general idea, and I think that that needs to be stressed right off the bat, because I know that that's what a lot of people will want to talk about. So, personally, we've got a lot of work going on with counties. There's been a lot of talk. There was a county summer study, and they're bringing lots of bills already. One was already passed out of Senate committee, and I think that there's a lot of sympathy for the plight of the counties, because not just Coddington with the jail, but lots of smaller counties don't have any money to basically pay for the things that they have to constitutionally fund and build and pay for. So there is a lot of sympathy out there for counties that was generated through the summer study, and I know that there was at least 6 to 8 bills that have already been proposed before the session even began. And one of them is making its way. The other one, Roger was proud to say that he killed. Personally, I'm also working on some initiative and referendum bills. I'm working on what I call the David J. Law bill, because I'd like to throw him in jail because he's recording this right now. And technically, that's not legal. And working on a lot of human trafficking bills. But with that, I'll pass it to Blake.
Yeah, thanks, Lee, for your comments. I just want to kind of dovetail off a couple of the things that Reed had already mentioned. I've chaired a number of summer studies and participated in a number of summer studies over the years, and we always came out with pieces of draft legislation that we recommend or pass along to the legislature. And again, with all the rhetoric on Medicaid expansion and teacher pay, there's nothing there. We had what night was that? Late afternoon? Wednesday. Department of Education, the governor's office had a meeting open to all legislators to try to explain what they would like to do. There's another one scheduled for this coming Monday to continue on with that discussion. These are informational meetings, but no, Reed's absolutely right. There's not a bill drafted, even in draft form, not been dropped, that we've had the opportunity to look at. And a lot of times when we're negotiating these bills, there are proposed amendments, or we'd like to tweak this part and so on. Right now, it's verbiage. So that's where we're at. I would anticipate over the next couple of weeks that we'll start seeing some of this draft legislation, whether it's Medicaid expansion or the teacher pay issue, or the half-penny sales tax issue. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks coming up, and we'll just have to go from there. Brett? Our road?
Yeah, I'm the road guy. So I'm a District 4 guy, and that means I represent rural Cottington as well as a number of other counties. My second year in the legislature is going a whole lot smoother than the first. You know, it's just like when you serve on a school board. The first year is a real learning experience, and that's how it was for me last year in the legislature. You learn where the restrooms are, you learn processes, and you learn about your fellow legislators. This year, I think I've hit the ground running. I've been working on a number of bills over the summer. Constituents have come to me. So it's been really a busy time for me. I'm overseeing a number of pro-life bills. I'm going to be on Monday bringing 2 bills actually to Roger's committee, one on veterans benefits to clarify the veterans preference. I'm bringing another bill to Roger's committee, State Affairs, on student physical privacy. And then on Wednesday I'll be bringing a teacher's benefits bill before House Education that came at the request of one of my superintendents, Tom Oster. I continue to serve on House Ed. This year I got asked if I would transfer from Commerce to Health as a result of some of the new appointments and some realignment of legislators, so I'm on a new committee and just really enjoying myself. Very grateful to be there.
All right, thanks. Now we'll open it up to questions, and I would ask you if you just ask a question. If you have a statement or if you want to give your opinion on something, I'm sure these guys will stay afterwards to talk to you about it. But for now, just questions. And I will ask the first one. I'll direct it to Roger. Is it unusual that the governor's main proposals have not been dropped in a bill form yet, and why do you think that is?
Yes, it's unusual, and you know, the reason I think he doesn't have a format is maybe he's, well, I can't put words in his mouth, but maybe an uncomfortable feeling where he's at on the issue, and he's waiting for more additional input from the legislative body. You know, and anytime you bring a bill, even, you know, whether they're Fred's or Reed's bills, whomever, you go through the process of getting people to sign on to your bill, you know, co-sponsors of this bill. And so I think that's what the governor and the governor's staff's doing right now. And when you go out and you start asking people to sign on to your bill, what you're really doing is looking for a consensus. Do you have some general agreement throughout the entire legislative body that your bill will even be remotely successful? And I think that's what he's doing right now is trying to go through that consensus building process to see if he's got enough. Keep in mind, this half-penny sales tax takes 2/3 vote. And does he have a 2/3 vote in both the House and the Senate? And so I think over the next week or two, we'll have the governor and the governor's staff approaching us as individual legislators and asking that question, okay, here it is, where do you stand? So that's going to happen. I am most certain of that. We like to call it the full court press. And it's just like in the basketball game. You'll see a lot of blue badges, which are government agency folks pressing the legislators to see what their stand is on any particular issue. So yeah, it's pretty unusual. We'd like to have something in writing that we can start making notes. And so right now it's pretty fluid.
Lee, anyone have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, let me break them between the two. On the Medicaid side, what's going on from the administration perspective is they're waiting for the feds to come back to them with whether or not they'll agree to some version of the proposal and how they would agree to it. And so that's just froze the state where they're at. I can tell you the legislature would love to move forward on that because in the House we're going to kill it. And we'd sooner kill it now than have to wait till February and drag the process down with someone's going to die anyway. On the education side, I'd agree with what Roger said, which is that I think the governor's staff is carefully working their way around the process to try and find the votes to get 2/3 in both houses. And that's no easy task. And so they're being judicious about it. I'm not the oldest guy at this table, but I'm kind of the old man politically, and I happen to have had the interesting experience of serving with Bill Jankel. That was a different style. You know, there would have been a bill introduced the first day and a vote expected the second. Governor Jankel runs things a little differently, or Governor Dugard. He's treading lightly, and I think he has a history of looking more for consensus.
Well, it is unprecedented that, especially on something this big, that you don't come with at least something, a proposal instead of just a general idea, because you're talking a $100 million tax increase. Now, I know some of you will say, wait, Governor only said $60 million to education. But if you look at it, the half penny is a $100 million tax. Now, he proposes that $40 million of it goes back to property tax reduction, but everyone in this room knows as well as I do that once you start collecting a tax, it will eventually be pocketed. Okay, so this idea that it will continually forever go back to property tax reduction is questionable at best. So let's call it what it is, which is a $100 million tax increase. And also I am actually pretty skeptical with Governor Dugard and his staff, because I definitely get the impression that they don't even know what the bill is going to be. In fact, I know that because I was talking with some of the governor's staff, and I was asking questions. It's like, is this going to be in there? Is that going to be in there? Well, do you feel strongly about that? And I go, yes, I do. And they say, well, I think maybe we could get that in there then. Come on, on a $100 million tax increase, you're still making it up into the third week of session? And I was pressing some of the governor's people and in the Senate yesterday, and we were asking, when can we expect a bill? I mean, I've got a Cracker Barrel tomorrow. I'd like to talk about an actual proposal. And they said, don't expect it for at least another week. Now that's the final bill drop. Don't you think that this should have been vetted out properly? Now I know, let's not go back and talk ill about anything that happened on the Blue Ribbon, because I know that they tried their best, and I know that they tried to get a consensus. But I think that they should have come with an actual proposal, and the governor surely should have come with a proposal, one way or another, as far as where he was going to put his political capital behind. So I think it's unprecedented for something this large, $100 million. In South Dakota, where we are bare to the bones on taxes, and you're proposing a $100 million tax, and you're making it up third week into session. So I don't know if Senator Peterson over there wants to come on up and say something different, but I know you've been around too, and whether you're in favor of this or against the general idea, to not even know what we're debating other than a general idea. I mean, if you want to just talk generally, are you in favor of raising taxes, or are you in favor of lowering them or keeping them still? I know where the general consensus of the legislature is going to be. And the only reason why this hasn't died already is because there is the desire out there to help our teachers.
All right, any questions? And I think you just stand up at your seat and say it, and they'll be able to hear you.
Yes.
I'm Gary Jager, and I represent Dual County as a commissioner, so I'm local governments, and I'm also on the state board. We had a teleconference yesterday. You're talking policies and procedures. When is it called for whether you have a 2/3 majority for a tax raise or when you have a simple majority? Thank you.
Every tax increase requires a 2/3 vote.
And to follow up on that.
Sure.
According to my sources and stuff like that, the one for the alcohol tax is going to require a 2/3, and then the one for the penny tax on sales tax is going to be a simple majority.
Your person was drinking the alcohol before they answered the question for you on the education tax. It takes 2/3.
Okay, Thank you.
Yeah, and I know that there is a desire to put a lot of this in the general bill, which is different, but I don't think that you can do that constitutionally. I know that they would love to try to do that, but I don't think that they can.
All right, thank you. Next.
Yes.
Okay, so there is no bills, or there are no bills right now for the governor's plan. And I think we're all trying to work behind the scenes. I know you talked about they're coming to the legislators trying to get some things soothed out. We're also being contacted, trying to make sure all of this works internally for our districts. But generally, we know the plan is out there. Where do each of you stand on that plan to raise teacher salaries in this state, to raise teacher salaries in this district, so that we can go out and recruit people and keep people to educate our kids? That's so important. So I'd just like to know where each of you stands.
I thought I heard it, well, first of all, let me go back. This half-penny sales tax has been largely marketed as the teacher pay, teacher salary, teacher recruitment sales tax, okay, and to support that. I thought I heard it during the governor's State of the State, and I made a note. I think I've got it here. It was affirmed the other day when we had that meeting with DOE and governor's folks and so on. Like Reed had mentioned, we're going to propose a half penny, or the governor's proposing a half penny tax, and he's largely been marketing that as a teacher pay, to benefit teacher pay. However, what I did here, and it was affirmed, that we will collect the tax at the state level. That goes back to the school districts, and what I'm still looking for from the governor's office and all the proponents for that is a guarantee that every dime of that $62 million will be spent on teacher pay, to get us out from, you know, what a lot of people say is that 51st position. There are no guarantees, at least at this point in time, that when that money comes back to the schools, that they have to spend it on teacher pay. They can buy school buses or boilers or buildings, whatever the local school board wants to do with that money. Now, it's going to be monitored over a period of 5 years, but, you know, for you teachers out there, I feel very uncomfortable knowing that there's a lot more money coming back to the school districts, and I'm not going to be the major recipient of that half-penny sales tax. So that's why I'm still highly resistant until I find that guarantee that all you teachers are going to get or reap the benefits of that half-penny. I'm going to still ask a lot more questions.
So if you had that assurance that all the money would go to teachers, you would support the tax increase?
Again,
Is that what you're saying?
I haven't seen the bill. None of us have seen the bill. How
But
many other?
if you're satisfied that all the money will go to the teachers, would you support the tax increase?
But here's another part of this. And the governor wants to rework the entire formula. All right? And talk about other funds, where he wants to include other funds. Now, and Reed had mentioned this, there are rumors, all kinds of rumors. One of them being, if you were fortunate enough to be in a county that has a wind farm, the school districts benefit from a tax on that wind farm. Well, one of the rumors says part of the formula is we're going to take those funds that county, and we're looking at Day County, Brookings County, there's potential for some wind expansion in eastern Cottington County and Grant and Dual on a wind farm. Rather than just those counties benefit from that increased tax revenue from your wind farm, he wants to take those dollars and redistribute those throughout the state. Okay, so there's another working part. that still needs to be argued. Are you really going to do this? Those counties out in western South Dakota who have the benefit of any oil production, well, they're reaping the benefits of that severance tax. And so is he going to go ahead and take those revenues that they're taking advantage of and redistribute those throughout the state? There are a lot of working parts to this whole thing. We're going to learn more Monday afternoon when we have the second part of this meeting where they talk about other funds. So at this point in time, I'm not going to commit at all.
Even though, if you're totally convinced that it'll be fair and all the money from the tax increase would go to teachers, you're still not going to tell me that you're going to support the tax increase.
We're halfway there.
Okay. Reed, would you like to answer the question?
Sure. The proposal as it stands now, I won't support. I can't. There's way too many questions. As it stands right now, it's the same system, just more money being thrown at it. Okay? Who's out here to protect the taxpayers? All of you are taxpayers. I mean, even the teachers. You're paying taxes into your own salary that you hope to get back. Even if you could say the $62 million goes to teachers, was to prevent the local districts from playing around and switching the money that was not the $62 million. Okay? There's already money in the school systems that they can fund, they can put it to teacher pay, they can put it to buildings, buses, special programs, whatever. And that's however many hundreds of millions, over 500 million, roughly. So that's money that we won't dedicate, whatever. He's showing me the card. That's money that we aren't dedicating to teachers. So let's say you bump teacher pay 62 million, you guarantee that 62 million of the new tax increase goes to teachers. What is to stop local districts from taking 62 million away from teacher salary and putting it into a different program that they want? Okay? It's the same system, just more money being thrown at it. I'm going to use Sioux Falls as an example because that way I have a better chance of getting out of here alive. Sioux Falls has 80 of the top administrators. 62 of them make more money than the governor. That's over $100,000. Now, I would contend, given the governor's lack of a proposal, that they probably deserve their salary more than the governor does this year. But 62 administrators. I'm really mad that the governor and the staff are putting us in this position where we have to come out to our constituents, where we have to look you guys in the face. They don't have to look you in the face. And they're putting us on the fire to stand up or against a proposal that they haven't even made yet. Okay? So 62 administrators in Sioux Falls make more than $100,000. Of the 18 that don't, 17 make more than $95,000. There's only one that makes less than $90,000. And there is no guarantee that they aren't going to make more money or that they aren't going to hire more administration, that they're not going to put it to other things. So where's the protection for the taxpayers? Because as far as the governor's proposal has said, all that they say is we are going to give it to the local districts and we expect it to get to teachers. If I were a teacher, I wouldn't trust that. Because right now, depending upon how you look at it, you can say, yes, we're 51st in teacher pay. We're not 51st in how we fund per student allocation. So arguably, we should be higher. Why isn't that money getting to teachers right now? Where is the guarantee that if we tax more, it's going to get to teachers? Being at the tech school, I would also like to bring up the fact that lost in this entire discussion, no one has ever mentioned tech schools in this proposal. Up at the Capitol, they are completely forgotten about. And as big of an issue that is for Watertown to not even be part of the equation, not even be part of the discussion, is also a serious question mark for me. And I would also just like to say that I think all of us up here, we very much question tax increases. But it doesn't mean that we don't ever do them. I mean, we passed a tax increase for roads because we were convinced of the need, and we were convinced that the plan that was brought would address the need, okay? Now we can say with teacher pay, we can accept the need, but can we accept that the plan that was brought will address the need and solve the need? So don't say that we will never do it, because that's unfair to say, because we have. What we need is the guarantee for the taxpayers and for the students. I want to take you back to the first ever Blue Ribbon Task Force. The first ever Blue Ribbon Task Force. I think it was the third or the fourth sentence out of the mouth of the chairwoman of that task force said, "This is not about student outcome." Okay? The entire proposal, the entire Blue Ribbon Task Force, from the mouth of the chairwoman, admitted that this was not about trying to increase student achievement. As taxpayers, that's why we pay taxes, is to educate children. Now, I know we want to make teachers happy along the way, and that you can argue that a happy teacher makes an achieving student. But they didn't look at where student achievement comes from. There's the separation, and I think that just as taxpayers and as teachers, because I know you look at the Blue Ribbon Task Force, and according to the teachers, teacher pay wasn't even number one on the list of reasons why they don't like teaching. It was all of the other stuff that they have to do, all of the other rules and regulations and requirements and extra work and administrative things, and also the fact that they don't get support from the families. So there's a lot more into this than just throwing money at the same old system. So if the proposal were dropped right in front of me tomorrow and I had to vote yes or no, I would vote no on that for that reason. There's just way too many questions, and I don't agree that throwing money at a problem solves it.
I come from a different perspective than my friends here maybe, but I would share some of the same concerns. Let me just first say, I put out a 7 or 8 page paper this summer that laid out my thoughts about what we ought to be doing on education funding in South Dakota.
And Lee was closer to a bill than the governor was.
And so, I've said I support a tax increase for funding education and for dealing with the tech school salary issues. So if somebody's mad at me over that, that's tough. But so I don't have a problem with that issue being in it. I don't think you can improve the education system with fairy dust. I think it takes real cash. But there has to still, even coming from my side of that equation, you still got to have a proposal. And there will be many, many components to that. And I can tell you that the discussions I've had with the governor's staff that have involved several other people too, that issue about how you're going to make sure it's directed to, so it's directed to where it's going to go. And I've had discussions with Mr. O'Brien, who served on that task force, and he said, the educators will know what the numbers are and deal with it in the negotiating process. But the real negotiating process that I've tried to convey to the governor's staff is the one that the legislators have to do with their constituents. Because they have to be able to tell their constituents, I voted for this purpose, and I can tell you it's going to go for this purpose. And if I can't tell you that it's going to go for this purpose, you're not going to believe me first. And that hurts credibility, and in fact, quite frankly, that means you don't get the votes in the legislature. And so I know the governor's office is, I don't know, struggling. I'm not in other meetings, but I know that they're at least working and addressing how do we make sure the money goes where we want it to go. And in the proposal I floated this summer, I think you have to set a salary schedule, and I've heard all that local control baloney, and since 1995, when over 50% of the local education funding came from the state, nobody cared enough about local control, because they had the ability to do it locally before then. And so that's going on. We're so far past that. That's like talking about dinosaurs in this discussion. But there's a real fear from the state's side to be that specific. And the reason it's a legitimate concern about where it goes is this. Today, every school district in South Dakota, including this one, has the ability to put educator salaries anywhere they want to put them. And I've had that discussion with my friend there. And of course, the problem is the school board locally doesn't want to take the hit for that tax increase, which would require an opt-out. But it's just a vote. We just got votes. We don't got printing presses or machine guns that kill these problems. We just have votes. The school board has votes. They could do it. They absolutely could do it today. But they are concerned that there is not the political will in the community to do it. Now, I disagree with them. I happen to think Watertown, because of the demographics of our community, I think that they ought to take it on. But I will tell you, near as I know, one school district in the last 10 years, maybe longer, Foreman's been in place 20 years, in South Dakota has addressed that issue, and that was Pennington County, the Rapid City School District, and they got slaughtered at the ballot box just a few months ago. I don't think that's reflective of every place else in the state. It's a community predominantly dominated by elderly, largely the collection of retirees they get from Ellsworth Air Force Base. There was a really strong political force in the local elections. People who have no ties to the community, no investment. We're different. The people here mostly grew up here. They raised their kids here. Their grandchildren are in the system. I don't think our school board should be afraid of the issue. I don't think our administrators should be afraid of the issue. But having said that, all but one school district in South Dakota is afraid to do it themselves. And so now the legislature, I hope, does, but legislators need to see that the money will go where it's supposed to go because their voters are going to demand that of them in the best scenario. In the worst scenario, the fact is that school boards, and let's just assume that they don't do it because they're afraid of the voter outcome. That's not all school boards. I would wager that most of the school boards think that they don't need to pay more because they can get bodies now. And if you think that's not true, I can show you the article from the Webster paper. The Wabae School District lost their math teacher. And so they trained up an English teacher to take part of it. And then they trained up one of their junior high math teachers to take a little bit more of it. And they couldn't get into the e-learning program because there weren't slots for that area. And I'm thinking to myself, that's kind of like, how can you be a cowboy without a horse or a rancher without any cows? You're not a school, a high school, without a math teacher. And that school board didn't respond in a manner that I would consider appropriate if you really wanted to claim you're a school. They're not unique. Those problems exist all over our state. And as a legislature, I think we need to know that if we say, we're going to give you more money because we want you to make that market more competitive so kids will go into that profession and people will stay in that profession, it's going to have to be pretty strong language. And that's what the governor's office is struggling with. I don't know if they can get 2/3 anyway, but they can't get 2/3 without strong language, and they don't like the strong language that was in my proposal.
I better hand this down to Fred so he can voice in, but another thing with the tax as proposed is it's a totally regressive tax. I mean, so much of the tax is going to be on food, which is going to hurt the poor people the worst. And I don't think that's the desire of any of the teachers, because you know as well as I do, unfortunately, the way that the modern world works is you have students that are hard to deal with, and a lot of them come from challenging households. And to tax those households extra on food, which is the one thing that none of us can get by without, to create more strain at the home, which creates more strain at the student, which brings that student into the classroom. It's just a difficult, it's one of the things that we have to consider. It's not just as easy as, I mean, I agree with Lee, it's like you have to fix it with something more than fairy dust, but at the same time, is this the tax that's going to get us there? I actually like, I've heard the Democrats proposing that you take the food away from tax. I like that. But again, that's not part of the proposal because we don't have one. And I would joke, my joke up there at the Capitol right now is, hey, we're going to tax, it's going to be a regressive tax that hits poor people the worst. Yeah, sorry. We're gonna do a regressive tax that hits poor people the most, but don't worry because we're going to expand Medicaid. So we'll cover them.
Glad to get a word in edgewise, guys.
I won't take it.
I think everybody can tell from the passion just amongst the four of us that this is a topic that will garner lots of debate among the 105 legislators in Pierre. And I think this, you can also see the disagreement among the four of us, how challenging it's going to be to get a 2/3 majority. And on any tax increase issue, anything, it is tough. And, you know, I can't think of anything more challenging than dealing with education. It's our children, whom we all love, and it's our dollars. For me, I mean, I don't have too much more to add. The devil is always in the details. You know, we have to see the proposals. You know, I served 8 years on the school board, 2 years as school board president. I'm very oriented towards doing what's necessary to do what's best for our kids. I know the teacher pipeline is a huge issue, getting more young people to go into the profession and to retain our current teachers. Right now, Watertown attracts a fair number of teachers from surrounding smaller districts, and that goes on all across the state. And we also have very porous borders where we lose teachers in all directions because of higher pay. So I'm philosophically okay with the budget proposal, teacher pay increase, if I know for sure that the money's going to go to teachers, and I'm comfortable with the details of the bill. We've not seen the bill, so that is forthcoming. But that's where I'm at right now.
Thanks. Next. Yes, Gordy.
You seem, all four of you, or three of you anyway, seem to slip by the tax increase pretty well. A letter writer in a neighboring newspaper probably agrees with you, talking about the surplus reserves that most school districts have that could be spent for teacher salary. On the other hand, if you read the results of the poll that was commissioned by the governor, 71% of the people polled supported a tax increase for teachers' pay. Now, can you guys guarantee that there will be another Cracker Barrel once the bill is introduced? That may bring some interesting discussion.
We don't schedule the Cracker Barrels.
February
The chamber
13th
does.
at the farm show.
Will you be at one?
I won't. I'm not going to be here for the next one. We've been kidding Reed that we're going to give him all the ink for the next one because it's over the President's Day holiday that they
Not
said.
necessarily the next one, the one after the bill is introduced.
Well, there is only one more, but I'll tell you this, the chamber wants to set another one on not a 3-day weekend. I'd be more than happy to. I mean, I got no problem talking about any issue. I'm more than happy to, but I'm not going to be here sucking any ink away from Reed during the one that's during the farm show.
Their generosity kills me, literally. That they both said that there won't be at the next Cracker Barrel. I do believe I will at the farm show. So, actually, Gordy, you mentioned a good point. Why is there no talk about South Dakota being number 2 in the nation in reserves per school? We're number 2 in reserves. Why isn't that money going to teachers? It's the same system. Now, granted, I have heard some tweaks about that, but where's the protection for the taxpayers and for the teachers? I would think that that's where the questions should be targeted to. I do want to say one thing. If there is not a tax increase, there is other ideas being floated around that I think might have a different alternative. And that is, I've talked with a lot of my friends who are the appropriators, and they say, let us do our job. Let us find the money in the existing budget, whether that's going after Department of Social Services. I mean, I've heard the line from John Wick, who's Fred's district mate, which I think is a good line. None of us like being 51st in teacher pay. We would probably be okay in being 51st in welfare payments. So why don't you start looking at where you can take away from in government and take it to some place that you do agree with more? There's also hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of exemptions, whether you're talking, and again, I want to get out of here alive, but you look at agricultural exemptions, you look at, there's 168 million in banking exemptions. Are all of these exemptions more important than teacher pay? I think we should start having that discussion instead of just saying, let's raise taxes. That's the simple solution when you don't want to look at hard budget items.
If you want to set something up for February 6th or February 20th, either of those, and I'll give up my chance to go watch Tile play for USD and beat SDSU down in Vermillion on the 20th even.
Take his mic away on that. Next question. Yes.
Reed, what what's going on with human trafficking? I know last year you were proposing, can you update us?
Actually, okay, so I think everyone knows what human trafficking is, which is when someone is using force, fraud, or coercion to take control of another person, usually using it for basically sexual services. They're selling them into forced prostitution, only they don't get any of the money. So I've been working, we have a very active crew here in Watertown led by the sisters out of the Benedictine Multicultural Center. Jenna Moffitt, we have a very active crew, Christy Nome's office, and Beth Manti, also on City Council. We've been working together and with the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General is taking one bill that will take property seized in a human trafficking bust and use it to support the victims and get them back on their feet again, which was an idea that I was working with them on, and be more than happy to let them take point on that. I have either between 6 independent bills, or what I'm hoping to do is put all those 6 bills into one. One of them would be to, the one that I would like to get most is to change human trafficking statutes into including services. So if you purchase sex from a trafficking victim, that's, the technical term is a John, and if you purchase sex from a trafficking victim, then you would be up for a possible Class 6 felony, which I think is only fair, because if you even attempt to purchase sex right now from a willing prostitute, it's a Class 1 misdemeanor. So I think if you know someone to be trafficked, it's only right that it be more of a crime. We would also be raising the age limit to coincide with federal regulations, and also we'd be changing some of the child porn regulations, because as odd as this sounds, right now it is a Class 4 felony to create or distribute child porn, but not to sell it. Why, I don't know, but it's just one of the loopholes that I found. So I'm hoping that if I can get an agreement, last year we had some opposition in the House regarding the including sexual services aspect of the bill, and I believe I'm trying to come up with a compromise that they can live with and I can live with and the Attorney General will support. So I think it would be a good thing.
You know, on this human trafficking issue, and the sisters have a video if you haven't seen it. I was sitting around with some people who were talking about pheasant hunting. I know you find that hard to believe I'd be having that conversation. We were talking about some preserves down in the Gregory Winter area, and somebody started talking about that Frank Day's bar down there in Dallas, and that there's strippers there. And the line I always say is, I don't go to strip joints because I don't think sex is a spectator sport. And they laughed, and I said, and I looked at them, I said, and besides that, you know that's sex trafficking, you know, for the most part, that's their victim. And you should see the look that changes, because they're just thinking, well, we're just down there hunting, and once you got over a beer and hung out at Frank Day's, and then you say, well, you understand, you know, that's like slaves, you get this, what's going on, and the face just changes. People don't think, don't want to, nobody's told them about it. More people need to understand what sex trafficking actually is, because I think most people think that goes on somewhere else. And they don't think about that it goes on when you go down to, okay, I won't say his name, but that nice little hunting lodge 2 miles south of Dallas, and then they head up there to Frank Day's place. Those are not all so willing people. And anyway, my point of it is legislation's good, but the education is probably even more important, or is as important.
All right, we're down to our last 5 minutes here. Another question? Yes.
It sounds to me, the way that the majority of you are speaking, is that you have a foundational belief of distrust in your local school boards and school districts. Where does that foundation come from, and can you provide any proof to me of a situation?
He's dead. Were you listening when I was talking?
Fred, actually,
Yes,
Fred,
I
go
will.
ahead.
You better go listen to the tape.
Actually, this would be interesting, Fred's.
I don't think that applies to me.
And the reason why I'm asking is because the governor gave one-time money a couple of years ago, specifically aimed at giving, going to teacher pay. And so, have you looked across the state to see if that happened, number one? And number two, don't you think in a magnitude of this matter, with this tax, that if that pay did not, or if that money did not go to teacher pay, that there would be an uprising.
Can I just real quick? Next school board meeting, why don't you propose, because you have the ability to do it, you don't need help from anybody else in this room or this table. What?
Use the microphone.
I just can't resist this one.
Because you have hit my pet peeve. Every school board in the state of South Dakota could address this problem, and only Rapid Cities has tried. And I don't mean talking about it. I get your passion. You're here talking. I'm talking about you got to vote. You can make a motion at your next school board meeting. Make the motion that you're going to that you want an opt-out to raise the teacher salary in this district because you care about the kids right here that are your responsibility. And when you make that motion, and if you don't get a second, then look around the table and ask why those school boards aren't doing it. But if you get the second, see if a majority vote. And if a majority do, that's good. Guess what happens then? Then you need to go out and sell it in your district and give the rest of us a chance to convince people in our community that we care enough about our kids to do something about it. And when you've done all that and been slapped in the face, if that happens, of course it hasn't because you haven't done it yet, when that happens, then we'll talk about the strong efforts made by school boards in the state of South Dakota and why the legislature shouldn't be scared of them not doing it.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Let
Yes,
Roger,
please.
I think Roger
Okay,
has the right
so
to be
Lee-
chimed in. I think Roger has the right to chime in on that.
Okay, after Roger speaks, we'll give you a follow-up.
A couple of years back, at this same function, it was over at the library, I had one of the school board members dressing me down and talking about, why don't you give schools more money? And I asked a simple question. I said, you have, as an elected official, have the ability to raise funds. And as a matter of fact, I said, you have more constituents than I do. Your school district is larger than my legislative district. I said, so you have the ability to raise funds. She said, oh, you're talking about an opt-out. I said, that's exactly what I'm talking about. She said, oh, we could never get an opt-out passed in this district. And I said, if you can't, if your voters don't want you to have more money, what makes you think mine do? Because they're all the same constituents. So as Lee suggested, get more money. You have the ability. No different than the counties have the ability to gain more money. That was one of the reasons why I offered the motion to kill the county one cent sales tax Friday morning.
You can do a follow-up question.
So from what I'm hearing from both of you, your foundation is that you think that local school boards should raise local taxes instead of, that's your foundational belief, from what I'm hearing. That you want us to pass, you want us to all pass opt-outs or raise taxes.
Okay, let me say this real slow. I put a 7-page paper out this summer about why we ought to have a penny sales tax increase for 6 months for education, deal with tech schools, some some of the regential system issues in K-12. I believe that, I'll vote for that. But I don't like hearing school boards who don't do their job throw stones at the legislature for the reasons I've said twice today and that Roger said. And that's just the facts, Jack.
I'm not throwing.
I'm sorry, your name's not Jack, I'm sorry.
And I would, just real, on my chime in, I think it's ironic that everyone preaches local control. Everyone in this room preaches local control, even those of us up at our table. But when you want, well, Lee says he doesn't. Let's say, fundamentally, we're all in favor of local control, but when you want more money, you come to the state. Takes away more local control. The tax as structured would take away even more local control because it has property tax reduction, which would also hurt local control. So I actually would say, as much as you might dislike us right now, we are willing to be open to this conversation with you right now. How many times have you had this same conversation with your local officials who actually do set the pay scale and who do have the option to raise taxes to address the same issue? We're willing to take this on because I think it's worthy of the discussion. So we're not backing down, even if you don't like where we're at on this particular subject, we're taking this on. How many times have you done that to your local officials?
All right, we have time for one more question,
Let me just get in a quick word.
or not.
I think in Watertown we all expect a degree of excellence from our school board. particularly because we've had excellence for so many years. But understand, in South Dakota, there's 151 school boards, and 151 different superintendents, and 151 different teaching staffs. The degree of quality varies significantly across our state, and the degree of commitment from school board members, frankly, varies significantly across our state. We do a great job. I'm proud to be a prior Watertown school board member, but I'll tell you, there's a significant difference, and that plays into this discussion significantly as well from the legislative standpoint on how we proceed.
All right, we are out of time. I want to thank again Lee, Reed, Roger, and Interloper for coming today. And I don't know about you all, but I can't wait for the February 13th Cracker Barrel. You sure you don't want to come, Lee? You change your plans?
Out of town.
Okay. All right, thanks for coming, and thanks for the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this.